Masechet Yoma Daf Yod Bet. Several very interesting topics. We're going to start off continuing the discussion yesterday about synagogues in a village or as opposed to in a city. Do they require mezuzah? Do they contract sarat of the house? Then we're going to talk about how do you initiate a replacement kohen if the kohen gadol should become pasul. You have to do some kind of investiture of the replacement. 3 ways to do that. And then related to the first way, what belt did a regular kohen wear during the year, with blue or without blue? And finally, what happens to the replacement kohen when the first one recovers, right? Can he still be kohen gadol, or do we have to throw him out? All right, so we start with the first. We saw yesterday that there were 2 baraitot regarding can a synagogue contract sarat of the house, mold. If you see mold, is it sarat or is it just mold and not considered sarat? And we saw these contradictory baraitot. We offered 3 ways of reconciling them. One, it was to be me'ir, a banan. The second one, it had an apartment for the chazan, one didn't. And the last answer was city synagogues, mold is not sarat because everyone comes in and out. They just belong to the public, so you can't call it achuzatchem, something that you grab hold of. Whereas if it's in a village, small village, it's like a shared property of just those people who are there. Everybody knows each other, and therefore, even though it's not owned by an individual, it's owned by a group, so you can call achuzatchem, which is required for the pasuk, and therefore mold there is sarat. Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to challenge this and the second one. We're going to challenge both of them. The first one will hold up. The second one will fall, and we're going to end up rejecting this whole answer and then rely on the previous 2. So here's where we begin. Is this really true that a synagogue in a large city does not contract impurity of sarat, and therefore also would not require a mezuzah? V'hatanya achuzatchem metamea b'negaim ve'en Yerushalayim metamea b'negaim. Since the pasuk regarding sarat habayit, last week's parasha, says only in bet eres achuzatchem, a house that you grab in the land that you grab hold of, so that is only something you grab hold of. But Jerusalem is not so. Okay, this is not yet the question. The question is going to be from Rabbi Yehuda. But let's just explain this statement first. What does it mean that Jerusalem you do not acquire? According to this opinion, and we'll see elaborated in a moment, Jerusalem is a nationalized city. Kind of like Washington, D.C. does not belong to any one state, right? It's shared by everybody. Kind of like Jerusalem was going to be in the partition plan in 1948. It was supposed to be an international city, not controlled by any country. So too, when the Israelites divided the land into the 12 tribes, Jerusalem was not divided. It didn't belong to anyone. It was nationalized, shared by everyone. Since nobody grabbed hold of it, inherited it, therefore, a house, synagogue, anything in Jerusalem does not contract tuma of negaim. That's the Tanakh Kama. Now, that's nothing to do with synagogues yet, so no problem here. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, ani lo shamati ela mekom mikdash bilvad. That's the end of the Braita. Rabbi Yehuda says, I only heard that the area of the Bet HaMikdash, that is what does not contract tuma. If on the Bet HaMikdash wall you see mold, it's not, don't worry, right? It's not going to be sarat. That's all I heard. Okay, still he never talked about synagogues here, but we're going to make an inference. Since he says elsewhere in Jerusalem, you would contract sarat, just not in the Mikdash, because you don't grab hold of the Mikdash, because the Mikdash is shared property. Nobody owns. The Jerusalem itself was owned by one shevet, but the Bet HaMikdash area was not. So therefore, you see, the only reason why the Bet HaMikdash does not contract sarat is because it's shared by everybody. But otherwise, it would, even though it's a holy place. So we can infer from that other holy places, a synagogue in Jerusalem, which is a big city, would therefore contract tum'ah. That's the basis of our question. We said earlier that we had made an assumption that a synagogue in a big city does not contract tum'ah of the house. And here, according to the Rabbi Yehuda, we infer that bate knesiot bate midrashot mitamein benagaim v'afagav dekrachim ninhu. Even though they're in a big city like Jerusalem, it's only the Beit HaMikdash that is excluded, not any other synagogue. So why is that? We have a contradiction. Emma amar Rabbi Yehuda, ani lo shamati ela makom mekudash bilvad. You know, we're going to change one of the words of Rabbi Yehuda's statement. Instead of mikdash, we're going to add a vav and say mekudash. Rabbi Yehuda says places in Jerusalem are owned by people, and therefore their homes can become tameh, but not a holy place. Holy place includes both the Beit HaMikdash and synagogues. Okay, as long as you're willing to change the pronunciation of that word, we can reconcile with Rabbi Yehuda. Now that you brought up this thing about Jerusalem being a nationalized city, let's go into that further. What's the essence of the machloket we just saw? Tanakama sabar Yerushalayim lo nitchaleka lishvatim, Rabbi Yehuda sabar Yerushalayim nitchaleka lishvatim. The first opinion says Jerusalem was not split. Does not belong to any one shevet, not Yehuda, not Binyamin. And Rabbi Yehuda says, yes, it was split between. It does belong to one of the shevatim. It's actually split between Yehuda and Binyamin. It's kind of like on the dividing line. Good. So that's the machloket. Now that we see that, we're going to match it up with yet another source. Biflukta dehani tanae. Tetanya mehaya bechelko shel Yehuda har habayit haleshachot v'ha'azarot. Umehaya bechelko shel Binyamin ulam ve'echal ubet kodshe hakodashim. Okay, this one baraita assumes that the Beit HaMikdash itself, and certainly Jerusalem, was in fact split between the Shevatim, and even gives us the dividing line. The Harabayit, the Temple Mount, right, the whole area surrounding, and the chambers, that's the chambers that are in the Ezrat Nashim here, and the courtyards. This is the courtyard of Ezrat Nashim. This courtyard is Ezrat Israel. All these courtyards are part of Yehuda. That's the pink part. And the rest of it, where the actual sanctuary is, and Kodshei Kodashim, the inside, all that belongs to Binyamin. The dividing line is here. However, the dividing line wasn't straight. Ursua hayta yotza mechelko shel Yehuda v'nichneset lechelko shel Binyamin uba haya mizbeach banui. And so there was a little indentation in which Yehuda's territory butted up against the mizbeach. This is not a great picture. A better one is here, where you see, right, the orange again is Yehuda, and Yehuda owned this area that was under the Mizbeach. At least part of the Mizbeach belonged to Yehuda. Another explanation is this section. Okay, so some section of the Mizbeach was under Yehuda, which intruded into the area of Binyamin. Now, Binyamin was not happy about this intrusion. Binyamin is called a Sadiq because he's one of a few people who the Midrash has never sinned. He was upset about this every day. He was always disappointed. He wishes, not out of jealousy, but just wishing that the Mizbeach would be under his territory because he loved the Mizbeach so much. Shenemar chofef alav kol hayom uben ketefav shachen in vezot beracha. That's the beracha for Binyamin. Literally, it means ever does God protect him. God protects Binyamin all the time. Uben ketefav, and between his shoulders does God reside. So the shoulders probably referring to the mountain range, and God, meaning the Beit HaMikdash, resides in the territory of Binyamin. That's the simple meaning. But the Midrash says chofef as in a sense of being worried about, always thinking about and wanting to change. So what was he worried about? That he wanted the Mizbeach to be under his. He was always wondering, right? How can I wish it was. So that's what he was distraught about all day. לפיכך זכה בנימין הצדיק ונעשה ושפיזכן לגבורה שנאמר ובין כתפיו שכן. In merit of Binyamin caring so much about the Mizbeach being under his and his territory, so he got merited that he would be ushpizin, no ushpizin, like on Sukkot, it means to have guests over. He was the host for God, called the Gevurah, as it says, Ben Ketvav Shachen, that the Holy of Holies, which is even better really than the Mizbeach, is in the tribe of Binyamin. Good. So all that is one opinion. That Baraita assumes that there was a dividing line and Jerusalem was divided. Now we'll see Baraita that assumes the other way. This is, was not divided. Jerusalem was a national capital, owned equally by everybody. The Tanya and maskidin batim b'Yerushalayim lefi she'ena shelahen. An amazing thing. People that reside in Jerusalem and they have their homes there, they don't really own their homes because nobody can own any land in Jerusalem. It's nationalized land. Therefore, you cannot rent out. You can't Airbnb your house, your apartment in Jerusalem for the people that are coming for Pesach. You have to, because you can't take money for it. It's not even yours. Furthermore, Rabbi Elazar R not even the bed that's in there. You can't rent out the bed because the bed's on land. That's not yours. So you're renting out something that's not yours. You have to let people come in for free. However, it's not really so practical. They're not going to let people in for free. We want pilgrims to come and visit Jerusalem. So the custom was that when people brought a sacrifice, right, they get to keep the skin, like a shalamim. The owner gets to keep the skin. So rather than take the skin home with them, they would leave the skin with the host. If they didn't, the host kind of had a right to take it by force. So this was the compromise. The rabbis allowed the host to take the skins of the sacrifices, and that was their rent, because they couldn't officially charge rent. Amar Abaye Shema Amina. Says, therefore, it's customary, it's the right thing. Don't make the host grab it from you, but leave for him both a wine jug and the skins for them. So it's very interesting. Truth is, actually, until today, the JNF, the Keren Kaimid Israel, actually owns a tremendous amount of the land in Jerusalem. Some government offices, other buildings are actually on the land of the JNF that they allow for people to use. There is some similarity. Joel, question?
Just curious, I thought that the kohanim had the right to the skins. I thought that was part of their.
That's true. That's for other, like olah. Right.
Okay. So it depends on
if a shalamim, someone's bringing the shalamim, the owner keeps it. Okay. V'dichfarim. So so now we settled that. We saw this very interesting machloket. We brought it up because we were wondering about the synagogues in the big cities. So that's all settled, and we now understand two opinions about the status of Jerusalem. But now we go to the other side. You said that village synagogues are, since they're like a partnership and they are held on to, so they do become tameh if there's mold there. Is that true? So we have another baraita that says, when you enter the land and take it for possession, that means when you conquer it. Now, question: what if you did conquer it, but you didn't split it up? You split it up into the tribes, but not to the clans. You gave it to the clans, but the clan didn't yet assign who individually will get this house and that house. How do you know that even in that case, it will not become impure? Only if it's your individual house that they already assigned to you, then the law of sarat applies, otherwise not. If it's not special for you, even though you know it's going to be with someone within our extended family, but you don't know particularly who, so there's no sarat. This is a question because you just said that the local synagogue does get sarat because it's shared by just a few people. But even that, according to this midrash, is not sufficient. It has to be single ownership in order for sarat to apply. Therefore, you know what this third answer that we gave yesterday to the contradiction between the two baraitot? We are rejecting it and we rely on either one of the other two responses. All right, that concludes that section. And now we're going to talk about how to initiate. Should the kohen gadol become tameh? How do we initiate the replacement kohen? We're going to see three ways. One, wearing his belt. One, flipping a sacrifice with the kohen gadol clothing. And third is do any service, and that's sufficient. So let's see how we get into this. Pishit matkinin lo kohen acher. Pishita era lo pesul kodem tamid shel shachar mechanechin oto betamid shel shachar. So here's the deal. The Kohen Gadol has to do something that's special for a Kohen Gadol in order to get initialized. If the Kohen Gadol, the current one, becomes pasul all the way in the morning before Tamid Shel Shachar, then we have no problem. Because here's the deal. This is actually Parashat HaShavua. On Yom Kippur, all year round, the Kohen Gadol wears eight pieces of clothing, right? That's the special uniform of the Kohen Gadol. However, on Yom Kippur, he switches off. When he's doing a Korban Tamid, things that he would regularly do on a regular day, he wears the uniform of eight garments. However, when he's doing things that are particular for Yom Kippur, like go into Kodesh Kodashim, then he has to look simple and humble. He wears only the four garments that a regular Kohen would wear. He kind of dresses down and looks like a regular Kohen. So here's the thing. If the Kohen Gadol became pasul in the morning before Tamid Shel Shachar, then we're good, because now the replacement Kohen Gadol will wear all eight garments. He'll look like a Kohen Gadol. He'll perform the Korban Tamid Shel Shachar, and that is something only a Kohen Gadol with his garments. So that is a good initiation, right? And then he can continue the rest of the day. But but if it happened after Tamid Shel Shachar, now all the next things that he needs to do are particular for Yom Kippur. So what's he going to do? He's going to put on his regular four garments, but his regular four garments, he looks like a Kohen Ejot. He's not doing anything to initiate. And so now he didn't have an initiation. He can't just go and practice as a Kohen Gadol. That is the question. So we're going to have three answers to this. The first answer is regarding his sash, his belt. His belt looks different from everybody else's belt. Let me show you a picture. So they should have put some blue in here. Imagine this one is blue. Okay, so here's the deal. Everybody agrees that all year round, a Kohen Gadol wears 8 garments, and that belt is made out of blue wool and white linen together, a combination, right? Wool and linen is shatnez, but for the kohanim, it's okay. So he wears blue all year round. On Yom Kippur, when he's doing the Yom Kippur service, he wears only 4 garments, and his belt is all white, only white linen, no blue wool. Okay, this is agreed upon by all. The question is, what about a regular kohen? We know he has 4 garments, but how about his belt? Does his belt have blue in it, like the Kohen Gadol all year round, or is it all white, like the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur? That's what we don't know. So if we assume for the moment that the regular Kohen wears blue, right, all the time, every day of the year, then if the Kohen Gadol, replacement Kohen Gadol, wears all white, that's distinguishing, right? Even for clothes that has a white belt, nobody else ever wears that. That's particular to Kohen Gadol. There's still a Kohen Gadol outfit that's for Yom Kippur. So by wearing that, he now has invested himself as Kohen Gadol, and now he can go ahead and do everything else. So that is the first answer. We're going to go through some.
Is this the mahloga that we saw a few dapim ago about based on the pasuk, if it's the same or not?
Yes. Correct. So we're going to go to it in more detail here. So this would make sense if the belt of the Kohen Gadol is the same as that of the regular Kohen during the whole rest of the year. Those are both blue. And on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol wears white, so that will be distinctive. So that's okay for his investiture. If you think that during the rest of the year the Kohen Gadol wears blue and a regular Kohen wears white, then if this Kohen comes and wears white, he's not doing anything special. He just looks like everybody else. So then what are you going to say? So now we come to the second answer. אמר רבי לובש שמונה ומהפך בסינורה וכדרב הונא דאמר רב הונא זר שהפך בסינורה חייב מיתה. So what it should do is, at first, even though the kohen, the real kohen gadol, the original kohen gadol, did korban shel shachar, and he's finished. Nevertheless, the replacement kohen gadol will wear all 8 pieces of clothing, and he'll go up and he will, since it's already on the fire, he'll just take a fork and he'll turn it over on the fire, right? Just do something to speed up the cooking. And so he's doing that with 8 clothing, and therefore that he's doing something, even though he can't do the whole korban shel shachar, that's sufficient for investing him as the new Kohen Gadol, as an inauguration. And how do we know that? Because Rav Huna taught that if an outsider, if a non-Kohen would go and even just turn over, even if he doesn't do everything else, just turn it over, then chayav mitah. So since it's chayav mitah, that means that is something that only the Kohen Gadol can do. So therefore, if he's doing that with the 8 pieces of clothing on, that's sufficient to inaugurate him. Question?
Yeah, Rabbi, later in the Masechet, I know when we did the Mishnah study, it mentioned how much the clothing cost for the white garments, for the whatever. So they're not like a regular everyday Kohen's clothing, even though they're white and simple.
Even though they're white. According to this, we're going to come to this at the end of the daf today. They're interchangeable. The white ones seem to be interchangeable.
Okay.
Okay. Verav Papa Amar Avodato Mechanachto. Papa is a simple one. Just do whatever you're going to do, right? You put on the four garments, regular garments. You look like anybody else, but then you're going to go and Kodesh Kodashim. Whatever you're going to do, that itself is initiation. He doesn't have to do. He doesn't have to wear anything special. He can just do something special, and that's sufficient. Okay. Milo Tanya. Kol hakelim she'asa Moshe. Here's Rav Papa's proof. Meshichatan mekadashtan. Mikan ve'elach avodatan mechanachtan. Hachiname avodato mechanachto. We learned elsewhere in the Braita regarding Moshe. When Moshe made the different utensils and clothing, he put oil on them, and when he anointed them, that made them holy. But that only Moshe did. That was a one-time event. From then on, you make a bowl. You make a bowl at home. There's nothing special. When you bring it to the Beit HaMikdash and use it for the first time, that was what initiates it. So too, this person, this Kohen replacement, by working as a Kohen Gadol, he will be initiated as Kohen Gadol. Good. Those are the 3 answers. And now we get to part C, which is, we just mentioned this machloket here regarding the belt. We want to see the various opinions and proofs. So we're going to see that it's actually machloket between the Rabbi, that's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. He says that a regular Kohen, or every day of the year, including Yom Kippur and all year round, wears white linen plus blue, like the Kohen Gadol all year round. Whereas Rabbi Elazar, and then we're going to see Rabbi Dosa also, say that the regular Kohen wear only white, like the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. Okay, so let's see the sources. Ki ata Rav Dimi Amad, Avneto shel Kohen Hejot, Rabbi v'Rabbi Elazar v'Rabbi Shimon, Chad amar shel Kil'ayim, v'Chad amar shel Boots. So Rav Dimi, he's one of the people who used to come from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, and he said this following regarding the belt of the regular Kohen. It's a machloket between Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon. He didn't report who says which opinion. He just knows that one of them says the regular Kohen wears kil'ayim, meaning the blue and white, wool and linen, and the other one says bus, only linen, only white. Now we're going to try to figure out who says which opinion. Tistayim de Rabbi, hu da'amar shel kilayim. Rabbi is the one that says that the regular Kohen wears the blue and white. How do we know? Another braita, the Tanya. And ben Kohen Gadol Kohen Hejot, ela avnet dibre Rabbi. There's no difference between the Kohen Gadol. Let's assume for the moment that we're talking about Yom Kippur, okay? On Yom Kippur, when the Kohen Gadol is wearing white, so there's no difference between when the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur wears 4 garments. There's no difference between him and a regular Kohen except for the belt. So it means the belt is different, right? So according to this, The kohen gadol for sure has white only. That means the regular kohen does have blue. So the B is the one that says it has blue. The B Elazar, but the B Shimon Omed, Aflo Abnet. The B says no, the same exactly in all ways. So since we know for sure the kohen gadol on Yom Kippur wears white, that means the regular kohanim wear white all year round. Okay, so that would be a proof. But that proof would only work if we assume this baraita is talking about the clothing on Yom Kippur. So emat inema b'sharimot hashana tubaika. So we want to prove that. So we're going to prove that by testing the opposite. If we say that this baraita is talking about all year round, then what do you mean? The B says there's only one difference. What do you mean there's only one difference? There's a lot of differences. Kohen gadol meshemesh bishmona v'hejot ba'arba'a. Kohen gadol all year round wears 8. Regular kohen wears 4. So therefore, this cannot be talking about a regular day. It must be talking about Yom Kippur. Elalav b'Yom Kippur. And there you go. Now we have our proof. But we're going to reject this before reviving it. Amri la le'olam b'shar yemot hashana u'bahanach deshavin. No, maybe what he meant to say is on the whole year round, they wear the same thing regarding those 4 that they have in common. I know that the Kohen Gadol wears 4 additional, but leave those aside. Right? Besides those, on the 4 regular ones, there is one difference according to the B, which is the belt. And according to that, since the Kohen Gadol does wear blue all year round, then the B would be the one that says the regular Kohen wears white all year round. And so that would be the opposite interpretation. And this is a plausible reading. So now we need further clarification. The first statement was when Rav Dimi came. The other rabbi who always comes from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel is his colleague Ravin. So when Ravin came, he brought more clarification to the matter. Amar Avneto Shel Kohen Gadol b'Yom Kippurim. Divrei Hakol Shel Butz. Everyone agrees that the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur wears only white linen. B'Sharimot Hashana Divrei Hakol Shel Kilayim. And all the rest of the year, the Kohen Gadol wears blue and white. That's agreed. Lo nechilku ela b'Avneto Shel Kohen Hedyot. Ben B'Sharimot Hashana, Ben B'Yom Kippur, Ben B'Yom Kippurim. The only disagreement is the regular kohen all year round. Should it be and Yom Kippur? Should it be Omer Shel Kilayim? Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon Omer Shel Bus. Rabbi is the one that says that the regular kohen wears blue all year round. So therefore, he's the same as the Kohen Gadol all year round. Rabbi Elazar says he wears white all year round. In that case, the regular Kohen is like the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. And now we've established what our initial proof was, that the B is that opinion. Okay, now next topic. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Afana namet tenena al besaro matamud omar yilbash lavi misnefet v'abnet ladamat ha-deshen. Let me just go to the outline a second. Okay, wait, before we get to this. Okay, so now we have another braita that will support this. Okay, there's another braita that supports the B. The B is coming up here. We're just going to see yet another opinion of the B Dosa. So we're involved this pasuk in Vayikra that says, "Velavash hakohen mido bad u'michnese bad yilbash al besaro veherim et hadeshen." The first thing that was done in the morning in Bet HaMikdash is a kohen, regular kohen, would go up and sweep off the ashes from the Mizbeach. What did he wear when he did that? Over here it just says it just sounds like a coat and pants. It only mentions 2 of the garments, not the others. So where are the other garments? I don't know, we assume him. But here it says on the one hand lavash, yilbash, and al besaro. So there's a doubling here. Why does it say lavash and also al besaro? That's the question. So what does, we know al besaro, if it's on his skin, he's wearing it. So what does the word yilbas come to teach? The first opinion is to include also his hat and his belt. Even though the pasuk only mentions 2 garments, no, he has to wear 4 garments. Okay, well, that opinion is not relevant to us, but that's the first explanation of this pasuk. Second explanation. Rabbi Dosa Omer, Labi bigdei kohen gadol b'yom kippurim, shehen kesherin lekohen hedyot. This is coming to include the clothing of the kohen gadol on Yom Kippur. That when the kohen gadol is done with his garments on Yom Kippur, he can give it to a regular kohen to wear. What do you see from this? That they're the same exact garments. Since we know for sure the Kohen Gadol wore only white on Yom Kippur, only a white belt, so therefore we can derive that according to the Dosa, he agrees with the opinion that says the regular kohanim wear only white, right? And Joel, this is a source that says, it sounds like it's interchangeable. But Rabbi Omer, Shete Teshuvot Badabar, Hadad Abneto Shel Kohen Gadol B'Yom Kippurim, Lo Zeu Abneto Shel Kohen Hejot. Rabbi says, this is Biuda Nasi, who we had before. He says, I have two responses to you. Number one, the sash, the belt that Kohen Gadol wears on Yom Kippur is not the same as that of Kohen Hejot. You see, according to him, Kohen Gadol wears only white. Regular Kohanim wear blue and white. So therefore, right, it's not the same. You can't say it's interchangeable. So I don't agree with your interpretation that the word velavash is coming, that the word yilbash is coming to include someone else who wears clothing, and that's the Kohen Gadol would be the same. No, I disagree. Ve'od begadim nishtam meshta b'hen kedusha chamura teshamesh b'hen kedusha kala. Furthermore, I don't agree with what you said. The Kohen Gadol, after he's done with it, he can give it to a Kohen Hejot, something that was used for the highest level kedusha by Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur in Kodesh Kodashim. Now you're going to make it lower level? No, it's not appropriate to do that. Ela matamud lomad yilbash lerabot et hashehakin. So what does the word yilbash mean? To include threadbare garments. That has to be on his skin, but it doesn't have to be full whole, even if it has strings hanging out and is a little patchy. It's still, nevertheless, they're okay to use for the regular kohen. Good. And now, as that Rabbi Dosa letameh detanya, Rabbi Dosa, who we just met, he is consistent with another braita who says Behinicham Sham. This is Parashat HaShavua. After the Kohen Gadol is done with all the service of Yom Kippur, he takes off his linen garments and leaves them there. What do you mean leaves them there? Who cares what he does with them? The first opinion says geniza, you can never use them again. He used them once for the special purpose, never to be used again. No, it teaches that the Kohen Gadol himself cannot use it next year, but a regular Kohen can take them and use them. So that's what Rabbi Dosa is consistent with what he said earlier. All right, and now we get to the last topic. What do you do with the replacement Kohen when the regular Kohen gets better? Tanura Banan, Erabo Pesul, the regular Kohen serving there, got some kind of mum. Minu Oacher Tachtav, and so they got the vice Kohen Gadol to come, and he's serving. Rishon Hozel Avodatov. The first one got better, then he goes back to serve. And what happens to the replacement? Sheni Kol Misvot Kiona Gedola Alav. He remains like a Kohen Gadol. He has to wear the 8 garments. If he can't marry a widow. He can't become tameh even for a close relative. All the laws of Kohen Gadol apply to him also. In other words, once you become that status, you remain in that status. That's the first opinion. Rabbi Yosef Omer, Rishon Chozer La'avodato, Sheni Eno Ra'ui Lo LeKohen Gadol Ve'Lo LeKohen Hejot. This is quite the opposite. The original Kohen who now got better, he goes back to serve. The replacement Kohen, is not Kohen Gadol. He can't even go back to being a regular Kohen. All right, we'll see why in this story. Rabbi Yosef proves his point from a story. Amar Rabbi Yosef, Maaseh beYosef ben Elem, Besipori, Sherabo Pesul Bekohen Gadol. There was an incident. There was this Kohen. His name was Yosef ben Elem. He was from the city of Sipori. We know where Sipori is. We found the ancient synagogue there. The synagogue is from after post second Bet HaMikdash, but we have a picture anyway. Anyway, what happened to this guy? He became Kohen Gadol and he became Pasul, and Minu Tachtav, and they put him instead. Sorry, there was a Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol became Pasul, and Yosef ben Elim was the replacement guy. So he became Kohen Gadol for a few hours. Then the original guy got better. So what did they do? Sheni, this Yosef ben Elim, and he cannot be Kohen Gadol. He can't even serve as a regular Kohen ever again. Why? Kohen Gadol mishum eva. You can't leave him Kohen Gadol because there'll be so much competition. Can you imagine? I'm Kohen Gadol. I have another guy walking around also with 8 things. If someone's president and the other president doesn't leave, you have another president walking around, right? So that's gonna cause tension. This is hatred. That's not tenable. He can't become Kohen Gadol. Kohen Hejot, Mishum Alin Bakodesh V'lo Moridin. He can't go down and now become a regular Kohen because you always go higher in sanctity and never lower. I had a friend one time. He was hired someplace to be the Chazan on Yom Kippur, and so they paid him a certain amount one year. The next year they came and they wanted to pay him less. He said Malin Bakodesh Ven Moridin, so they gave him a raise. Okay, so therefore, right, since you can't make him a regular Kohen, he has to just leave altogether. So that's what we learned from that story. This story is amazingly found in Josephus. So this is a real guy. We can pinpoint exactly when the story happened. So Josephus in Antiquities of the Jews says this following story. It happened that during the time of the high priesthood of this Matityahu. Now we know the name, the Talmud doesn't provide us the name of the original Kohen, Matityahu. There was another person made high priest for a single day. That very day that the Jews observe as a fast, right? He became pasul for Yom Kippur. Sounds like for the whole Yom Kippur. But then after Yom Kippur, that Matityahu got better. How did it happen? The occasion was this. This Matityahu, the high priest, on the night before the day when the fast was to be celebrated, seemed in a dream to have a conversation with his wife, right? So in other words, this is really appropriate during those 7 days of quarantine. So the night before Yom Kippur, he has a dream. He dreams of his wife, and apparently this was not a kosher dream, and he became tameh. And so he could not officiate on that account. So Joseph, the son of Elymas, there you go, Yosef ben Elim, his kinsman assisted him in that sacred office, and he was the Kohen Gadol for a day. So we're very thankful for Josephus for filling in all the details of this story. The Talmud is only interested in the story just for the little bit of halacha, not for history. So we bring both together, then they can support each other. All right, so last point about the halacha l'maaseh in this regard. Amar Rabba bar bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Halacha k'Rabbi Yosef. In fact, we do not follow the first opinion of Rabbi Meir. Rather, Rabbi Yosef, we kick him out. He is not a kohen gadol and not even a regular kohen. But even Rabbi Yosef would agree that he's not supposed to. But let's say he snuck in there and he did some service of a kohen gadol. The service is valid, right? So another he does essentially retain his status as kohen gadol. We just don't let him because it will cause hatred. אמר רבי יהודה אמר רב, הלכה כרבי יוסף, ומודה רבי יוסף שאם מת ראשון, שחוזר לעבודתו. And so Rav, secondly, he agrees that, yes, halacha is Rabbi Yosef, he can serve as Kohen Gadol. But if the first original Kohen Gadol dies, well, then there's no hatred and problem of hatred anymore. And so the replacement Kohen Gadol can become Kohen Gadol. So again, and this is similar, that he retains his status as Kohen Gadol. He's just not allowed to be around in order not to step on the other guy's toes. Last point, Peshita. Wait, isn't that obvious that he can become Kohen Gadol if the original guy dies? Why didn't he even teach us that? It's sort of to teach us that we might have thought, if I'm Kohen Gadol and I know that if I die, this guy's going to replace me, then I always think, oh, he's looking for my bed, right? He wishes me out of here, and so that'll cause me trouble. The kind of trouble that a co-wife has. That's sara really means, right? Sara, the co-wife, someone has 2 wives, each one is always wishing that the other guy would die, or the other woman would die and get out of here. So we might have thought that this would be a problem, and then we say, Kamashmana, no, it's no problem. The replacement Kohen Gadol will have respect, and so, he wishes the Kohen long life, but should it happen that he dies, then the replacement will take over. It's very interesting that we give a psak halacha for the times of the Mashiach. right? When is this happening, right? We don't usually say, oh, and halacha is like this opinion regarding anything about korbanot. So possibly they're saying this because it can have it can be applicable to today also. If you have a chazan, a president, or rabbi, or whatever the case is, let's say they're sick, they're incapacitated, and then someone else takes over for them, but then they get better, right? So then you should they get their job back, and the replacement then has to step out of the way to allow the person to take their job back. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.